Scouting began as a brilliant idea of an inspiring man, Lord Robert Stephenson Smith Baden-Powell, simply known to Scouts as BP, the founder of the movement. His legacy of happiness to the Scouts is the core purpose of the Scouting movement. Because of the unique character and unique system of his training, it attracted millions of boys. BP was born on February 22, 1857 in Paddington, London, England. He was the fifth son and eighth child of Reverend Herbert George Baden-Powell and Henrietta Grace Smith. His father was a clergyman, naturalist, and a secretary at Oxford University. Died when he was only 3 years old. His mother was the daughter of a celebrated astronomer and Admiral of the Royal British Navy, William Henry Smith. Captain John Smith, who captured the heart of a well-known American Indian girl, Pocahontas, was the great-grandfather of BP. On October 1912, BP got married at the age of 55 to a young lady of 23, Olive Soames. BP married not only a loving wife, but a wonderful partner in his work for young people of the world. They were blessed with 3 children, and they all pursued a scouting life. BP studied at Charterhouse School, where he excelled in arts and military science, and spent many of his happiest times in the woodland outside the school grounds. He loved outdoors and adventures during his childhood, which served to be his first guide in planning out the program for scouting. During his college days, BP was a member of the Wimbledon rifle team. At the age of 19, BP passed the examination for commissioned officers, and at 21, he was commissioned as lieutenant with the 13th Hussars, the mounted cavalry of the British Army. He was a jolly and friendly soldier who usually made music with fellow officers. After 8 years in service, BP, now a captain, was ordered to post his regiment in Fort Natal, South Africa. He was sent into the frontier region alone to survey the mountain passes in case the regiment has to move inland. And on 1883, Captain BP was assigned as company commandant in Zululand, South Africa. During his dispatches in Natal province of South Africa, he came across a large string of wooden beads worn by the Zulu king Dinizulu, which was later incorporated into the woodbats training program. In 1897, at the age of 40, BP was promoted to major and led the 5th Dragon Guard, a British constabulary in India. A few years later, he wrote a manual entitled Aids to Scouting, a book intended as a military training manual teaching soldiers techniques such as observation, tracking, thinking independently, using own initiative, and surviving in the wilderness. BP returned to South Africa prior to the Boer War and was engaged in a number of actions against the Zulus. He was promoted by the time of the Boer War to the youngest colonel in the British Army. He was responsible for the organization of a force of frontiersmen to assist the regular army. Whilst arranging this, he was trapped in the Siege of Mafeking and surrounded by a Boer army in excess of 8,000 men. But because of Baden-Powell's behest as commander of the garrison, he instituted cunning military deceptions. Fake minefields were planted, and his soldiers were ordered to simulate avoiding non-existent barbed wire while moving between trenches. BP did most of the reconnaissance work himself. He also built up a team of native boys to stand guard and carry messages, sometimes across enemy lines. Many of these boys lost their lives in this undertaking. After 217 days, the Boers, a force that could have inflicted great damage to the British Army units, immobilized around Mappeking area. The siege was lifted in the relief of Mappeking on May 16, 1900. When the news reached the British capital the following day, the whole country went wild with joy. The name Baden-Powell was on the lips of everyone. Queen Victoria made the defender of Mappeking at the age of 43, the youngest Major General, the highest in the British cavalry. In 1903, after organizing the South African Constabulary, Beefy returned to England to take up a post as Inspector General of the Cavalry. At the turn of the century, when Beefy returned to England from South Africa, he observed from the dockyard to the center of London, thousands of boys and young men pale, narrow-chested, hands-up and dirty, miserable specimens of humanity, smoking endless cigarettes, a number begging. Beefy became concerned for the decline in the quality of life and the prospects for young people. Beefy, a national hero and an experienced trainer, was aware that he was in a good position to initiate and try to improve English society. He believed that the first step was to improve the individuals by educating them and inculcating in them right values, a necessary ingredient in the development of right character that leads to responsible citizenship. Upon learning that his military training manual, Aids to Scouting, was being read and avidly followed by the youngsters of Britain, he started to devote more time to the expansion of his scouting ideas. He was invited by Sir William Smith, the founder of the Boys Brigade, to review a rally attended by 7,000 boys. Baden-Powell congratulated Sir William, but commented that he ought to have 10 times as many boys and more variety and attraction to the program. Sir William requested to Beefy to rewrite Aids for Scouting for younger readers. But before Beefy made his Boy Scout scheme, he decided to try it out. On August 1st to 9, 1907, he held a camp for 22 boys of mixed social breakdown to test out some of his ideas in Brownsea Island in Full Harbor, off the southern coast of England. The first Boy Scout camp the world had ever seen. And the scheme worked. In January 1908, Beefy's book, Scouting for Boys, began to appear in the bookstores and on the newsstand in England in pamphlet form, one part every 2 weeks. And on May 1st, 1908, it was published in book form and became an instant bestseller. It became evident to Baden-Powell that he had creating something important that would require his complete attention to the scouting movement. In 1910, Beefy retired from the British Army. Beefy was operated for prostate cancer. In 1939, when the World War II broke out, Beefy was living in Kenya. He was already 83 years old. In the gentle climate of Kenya, Beefy's health improved, but on September 1940, he had a relapse and his heart was awfully tired. And on January 8, 1941, the great heart of Baden-Powell that has spread so much happiness throughout the world stops beating. The world mourned on his death. He was buried in a simple grave at Nyeri within sight of Mount Kenya. And on BP's tombstone bore the trail sign, a period in a circle, which means have gone home. Today, his spirit lives on wherever there are scouts. Scouting continues until now in the whole world.
I've got a BP spirit deep in my heart, deep in my heart, deep in my heart. I've got a BP spirit deep in my heart, deep in my heart to stay. The cannibal king with a fat nose ring fell in love with a hula queen, and every night on a moonlit night over the lake he came. He hugged and kissed his pretty little miss under the bamboo tree, and every night in the clear moonlight this is what he sang. Arum, arum, arum di-I-D-A, arum, arum, arum di-I-D-A. Three little ducks there I once knew, fat, one skinny, one's just like you. But the one little duck with a feather on his back, he ruled the others with a quack, quack, quack. Down by the river they would go, wibble wobble to and fro. But the one little duck with a feather on his back, he ruled the others with a quack, quack,